Making a level in as few objects as possible is not a new concept. For several years, creators have been pushing the editor to its limits in order to lower the number of objects needed to make a good level. One example of this would be the levolution trend that was popular throughout late 2.0 and early 2.1, which reached its peak with levels such as The Lost Existence by Jonathan GD. These levels can serve as ways for creators to showcase their mastery of the editor, finding exploits in order to add detail to levels in a minimal amount of objects, potentially gaining valuable experience to improve the quality of their future works. One of the more well-known levels that follows this concept is Untitled Unmastered by Para. Immediately, one thing I'd like to touch on about the level is the reason it was made in the first place. Earlier in 2022, LexiCat released her attempt at an extreme doom with under 1,000 objects, called Shy. Shy gained a lot of positive attention in the community for being quite visually impressive considering its object count, and many praised its gameplay as well. However, Shy also received a lot of criticism, mainly due to its heavy use of scaled objects and blending colors in order to effectively fill space. Lexi challenged the community to make a better low-object extreme doom, and in response, Para ended up releasing Untitled Unmastered, using just 947 objects. In his description in the video, he says, "In the pursuit of calling ugly levels bad, I took it upon myself to create my own extreme demon in under 1,000 objects, and suffice to say, I am pleased with the results." Lexi's intent with creating Shy was to create healthy competition. Healthy competition can breed some of the best works and most talented creators in the game. An example of this began with Roaming by Puck, which sparked a sort of competition for the lowest object rated level between the following levels by Flash, Sputniks, and Tesseract. Each creator was pushed in a positive manner by previous levels to find creative ways to save objects, while still letting the level feel complete. However, in competition, Para decided to put down Shy, and I really don't like the fact that Untitled Unmastered was born as a direct shot at Shy because of that. I think this type of negative competition only serves to upset and discredit the work of others rather than push them to do better, in addition to creating perpetual comparisons that can downplay the worth of the level itself. Creating levels is ultimately freeform, so I would much rather see creators uplift each other than tear each other down, and the context for Untitled Unmastered's creation drags the level down as a whole for me because of that. Aside from that, this level does have a lot to talk about. Inevitably, for a level with so few objects, the level does not include an excessive amount of detail, and thus the gameplay is placed in a much bigger focus than it would otherwise be. This leads into my other major complaint with Untitled Unmastered. The gameplay is inconsistent, bordering on unplayable. In the pre-drop, the gameplay is entirely ship and is very repetitive, with both sections considering of repeating spikes and pillars. From an optimization standpoint, this makes sense, but in practice it became very boring for me and has received criticism from victors such as Nay, saying it never gets consistent, among other things. However, I do like how the drop steps things up in terms of variation, with the level being much faster and having alternating UFO and wave sections near the end. I think this switch in styles works in the level's favor and is something I will touch on later. Personally, this ship section is my favorite. It's very consistent and feels extremely satisfying to play due to the orbs and portal gaps flowing nicely together and being synced well. Sadly, however, the ending section is plagued by double clicks and wave to UFO transitions that are very inconsistent and difficult to practice. Considering how much a focus the gameplay was in Untitled Unmastered, I think the gameplay itself is quite disappointing to me even for the level's low object count. I think making it easier would likely have remedied this somewhat by helping the beginning be less of a consistency challenge and by making the timings in the drop more forgiving, lessening the inconsistency of the double clicks and transitions. However, the playability of the gameplay still ends up bringing the quality of the level as a whole down for me, and I would have liked to see more effort put into this by Para. While the gameplay is a major focus here, the level does still contain a surprising amount of visuals considering its low object count. In the first two sections, Para makes use of a vision limiter. While this trick has been used in many levels up to this day, I like its use here as it allows the level to effectively use less objects, as it doubles to help obscure the structures, allowing them to repeat using movements off screen. It's a subtle but effective trick and helps show how much effort Para put into optimizing this level to have as few objects as possible. One thing I haven't yet mentioned is how the song plays into the level. Throughout the pre-drop, the song begins as quiet and atmospheric, and slowly builds, adding onto itself and eventually releasing in the drop. In combination with the shift in decoration, I feel that this is so important to how the level comes together visually. The build-up and release of tension created by the disparity in speed, brightness, and loudness for both the level and the song provides an answer for the anticipation provided by the pre-drop and feels so satisfying to watch every time I watch the level. I find the drop itself really cool because of how it manages to be so detailed with so few objects. The movement reuse trick I mentioned previously, in addition to usage of text to create designs that are fairly detailed and do look nice but use minimal objects, really appeals to me, and I think the part as a whole looks great. The combination of the unique structures, the spinning background, and how well the level goes with the song is something that really holds my attention whenever I watch the level in full, in addition to the subtle glow adding color to the level for the first time, helping further dissection the level between the pre-drop and the drop. In the UFO wave section, the introduction of extra glow in the background and the shift in structuring is subtle, but even this feels like a very welcome change, in addition to the song intensifying as it reaches its climax. The added variation in gameplay and new structuring in the wave parts helps sell this feeling for me, as it feels like the culmination of all the previous parts leading up to it. I absolutely love the way the level builds into and executes this part. The climax of energy created by all of this part's elements feels so satisfying to watch, and the moving portals are a neat visual too. They help provide some movement to an otherwise mostly static level. All of this combines to create a final part that visually serves really well as the climax to the level, having the most complex and dynamic visuals, as well as the most intense part of the song. All in all, while I do have some pretty major complaints with Untitled Unmastered, I find the level really impressive visually for its object count. The visuals, song, and gameplay all combine to create a level that does an excellent job at holding my attention throughout its length, managing to feel very dynamic and visually full despite having less than 1,000 objects. Unfortunately, the negative competition responsible for the level's creation and the inconsistencies with the gameplay really hold this level back from being what it could be, and it's quite disappointing because of that. Regardless, visually this is one of my favorite levels of the year, and in the future I look forward to seeing how far people push the editor in order to reduce the object count of their levels. In case you haven't seen Untitled Unmastered, here's a showcase of the level. Hope you enjoy.